Juvenile Handicap Hurdle, the Fred Winter. It's a race that is probably one of the ones I would say where the weights are most crucial to being able to whittle down this field, because there's not that many entries. I mean, there's 47, only 22 can run, but it will decide who's going to be able to get into the field. It's also going to show the pecking order of a lot of horses, because you get this every single year. Lots of horses will run against each other, and then for some reason the BHA handicapper will give one horse one mark. It's beating a horse by a length, and it will give the other one £3 more or something, and you think, I don't know how they did that. So there's always a few that are on sort of the short list. It's been a bad race for favourites. No winner of the Boodles. I think 2005 is when it started, has ever run at Cheltenham the same season and won. So that's not so good news for Stencil. But again, stats are there to be broken, aren't they? And as I say, the glass half full people to say, we're due one. You got Willie de Hall that's well fancied in this race as well, that was well touted for a triumph before, but he didn't look to be ridden last time with a handicap in mind. He looked like he was trying almost as best as he probably could. I think they're going to keep, not necessarily exposing him, but I think they're going to keep trying with him this season, and things just haven't planned out. I don't think he's a plot. Naturally Nimble's another one that's on the radar, in at 10-1. William has got Lady Vega out, and I think an Artiste was the last filly to win this race. They've got Mercier as well, another filly. Then Joseph O'Brien's got a handful as well. Put Your Hands Together has been fairly popular. Beyond Your Dreams. There's loads of horses. I could literally just run through every single name and say these horses have got entries, and you can make a small case for them. The one I'm really interested to see the handicap mark for is Wendrock for Gordon Elliott. He's got bits of form behind Total Look, who's a single figure price for this one, and I think behind Beyond Your Dreams as well. I think this horse might get in light, but it depends what the handicapper does. If this horse was under 125, I would fancy Wendrock quite strongly, but we'll have to see what sort of figures come out for it. The Willie de Hall and Naturally Nimble ones, they're the two that will probably stick out to me, as they're the right sort of types that will probably be in and around the finish. Each way plays, you might be able to get 5 places, but I'm interested to see how their comparative marks come out, because I would say at this point, Naturally Nimble is definitely better than Willie de Hall. But we can clip that when Willie de Hall slams him, giving him £7 or whatever way it spins out. But I find this race a hard one to have any confidence in until we get those weights. It's normally a race I do have a fancy in. Whether they get the winner or not is a different story. So, Will, do you find this one easier or harder to do when we don't have the weights? Obviously, it's always hard without the weights. And would it be one that you've got a fancy on now, or one for nearer the time?
No, I do have a strong fancy on one now. The weights for this, in some respects, I'm hoping that the weights for this produce a lot of talk about various different horses that might have been plotted up for this, plotted up for that, and this one has got £2 more than that one, and it beat it by a length, etc., etc. And there'll be plenty of those horses from the Irish juvenile hurdles that will get plenty of talk. Like you said, the likes of Wendrock, he is probably better than a 120s rated horse. Total Look, has shown some signs of promise. Naturally Nimble probably wasn't supposed to win on his penultimate start, but did so because they went a million miles an hour and the race fell apart. And there's one or two others, that are certainly interesting. Put Your Hands Together is one that I definitely thought was interesting for Joseph O'Brien. Eye-catching second at Fairyhouse on his qualifying run. Good flat form on a decent surface. I wouldn't mind if it came up a slightly better surface, but I'm hoping that all kind of diverts away from Stencil here, who's top price 6-1 at the minute and favourite, and has been, favourite from ever since he finished second to East India Dock in that Triumph trial at Trials Day. And it was almost a case of, with him, I think he's just hiding in plain sight, isn't he? I mean, to do what he did against East India Dock, who for me is, he's the best British trained juvenile we've seen for many a year, without a shadow of a doubt, on what he's done performance-wise, visually, and on the clock. And I think in a weak year for the Triumph in terms of Irish representatives, I think he's going to be hard to beat in the Triumph. Obviously, Lulamba might be something slightly different. But to do what he did, Stencil, in that race, in that he travelled within his comfort zone, in behind East India Dock. And then when it was clear that East India Dock was going to win the race, the last couple of furlongs, Stencil didn't really have too much of a hard time of it, to be fair. And he's pulled a mile clear of the remainder. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the handicapper actually does. He should rate him around about 135, given where he's got East India Dock and the third horse home that day, and also on what his French rating is. He should do. This could be one that they get a little bit liberal with and think, well, hang on, we need to be rating him higher. But if they've got East India Dock on 142, I don't see how they can rate him higher than 135. And that to me would be absolutely perfect. I think he could run a massive race in the Triumph if they wanted to on what he did behind East India Dock. So I think it's a case for him. You know, there'll be lots that are talked about, but for me, if he's the one for the owner, you know, which is a big question mark, there'll be plenty in there. But goodness me, he looked really, really good in behind East India Dock. I don't think there's any horse in here of that particular class. You know, even if they're getting a stone from him, I don't think that'll matter.
Nice, bullish. I like that one, Will. And as much as we might frown upon, like, oh, it's a favourite for a handicap, 6-1 favourite. That'd be like sort of 5th or 6th favourite in most weekend handicaps, and you're probably only getting that bigger price about him because it is the Cheltenham Festival and because we're waiting for the weights. Like you say, if the weight comes out right, and he does get like a 135, and he potentially could be rated lower than Willie de Hull and Naturally Nimble, which would be almost unfathomable on the actual bare form that they've done this season. But that's the reality of what could happen. So yeah, he could be a good thing. And a favourite's got to win it at some point, right? But maybe that's why the BHA handicapper will relent, because they'll be like, well, who cares? Let's give him a nice mark. The shorter he goes off, the less chance he's got. I don't think that's how they do official handicaps, unless things have changed. But yeah, Stencil, I like that, Will. And of course,
with regards to weights, Dave, the one thing I keep coming back to with regards to festival handicaps is presenting Percy. Do you remember when he won the Potemps in 2017, I think it was, when, I mean, he had a high mark for that. And everyone's like, oh, how can you give him such a high mark, etc., etc. And the connections were like, oh, he's got £5 too much. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If your horse is tuned to the minute, suited to the track, suited to the test that particular race gives, it doesn't matter. You know, an extra £3 or £4 makes no difference whatsoever. You can quite quickly counteract that by being hampered at the first hurdle, and you get put back, you know, however many lengths. There are different factors at play here. So even if Stencil got early 140s, they should still just go and win it.